Okay, so this week I chose prompt 2, which says, provide real-life examples of neighborhood effects on children and/or families and propose ways in which local churches can do to alleviate its adverse effects. According to this week's reading, there are 3 theories for how neighborhood influences may be transmitted to children and youth: institutional resources, relationships, and norms and collective efficacy. These are all good theories, but are they applicable in real-life situations? In my personal experience, yes, they are. I travel a lot for my line of work, and so I get to witness many different types of neighborhoods and communities. For this presentation, I'm going to focus on one particular neighborhood that we will call Neighborhood A. Neighborhood A is in a very small, rural community. There are not a lot of educational or job opportunities in Neighborhood A, and most of the families are what would be considered a low socioeconomic status. How does all of this affect a child's development, though? Well, let's go back to the reading for that. The article this week tells us that institutional resources are things such as learning activities, social and recreational activities, childcare, schools, and employment opportunities. Based on what I told you about Neighborhood A, we can see that it has many of these components that could be affecting the children's development. For example, there are little education opportunities in Neighborhood A. Schools and learning activities are an institutional resource, and if Neighborhood A does not have them, then it does not have the means to help foster school readiness and the children develop attitudes based on school norms, such as it's okay to skip school to go hunting. Next, we have to consider the relationships of Neighborhood A. This involves looking at parental characteristics, support networks, parental behaviors, and home environments. With Neighborhood A being in such a small community, support is rare. The closest hospital is over an hour away, and there's only one doctor in town. Parents often have poor mental health and poor physical health, not to mention that with things being so spread out, there's very little communication with anybody outside of the neighborhood and the immediate family. Leventhal indicates that neighborhood conditions, such as poverty and violence, are associated with parental behaviors such as warmth, harshness, and supervision. So it would be safe to say that the children in Neighborhood A are being affected by these limited relationships with others. Finally, neighborhoods can influence the development of children through norms and collective efficacy. This means that the residents monitor one another's behavior based on what is the norm for their neighborhood. Neighborhood A is a neighborhood with one of the highest substance use rates in the state. Since the use of drugs is so high in Neighborhood A, this is something that would be considered a norm. The children in this neighborhood are learning that drug use is acceptable and begin using at earlier ages than most surrounding areas. Not only is this hindering their psychological development, but also their physical development. So then, if neighborhoods can have this much influence over the development of children, what can be done to alter the neighborhood's effects? First off, in a small neighborhood like this, it's important for a church to spread the word. Get out and physically knock on doors and invite people to church. Get to know them in a setting where they are comfortable and will open up about the issues that they are facing. After all, there is very little possibility to meet the residents at random. Also, a big part in helping a community where substance use is a major problem is addressing that problem. There is one church in Neighborhood A that holds a recovery group meeting on Friday nights. They leave the meetings open to any type of problem or addiction that someone wants to conquer, so not to single people out. And I have seen many residents go through the program specifically just for this reason. It's a place where they can go to church and not feel as if they're being judged or criticized. Finally, and one of the most important ways that I believe a church can help conquer adverse effects of a neighborhood is to reach out to the children themselves. and showed them that yes, their parents may behave this way, and they may have a hard home life, and they may be exposed to some really terrible things, but not everything has to be like that, and they can find refuge in church, and they can find guidance in the Lord.